A young billionaire collapses in an elite ICU, and not even the top specialist can explain the breakdown. As his vital signs fluctuate, a 7-year-old girl recognizes a scent that heralds death. Ignored by everyone, she holds the only clue that can uncover a deadly plot inside the hospital. At St. Jude's Hospital, the most prestigious in London, it was bustling that Thursday morning. On the 15th floor, the VIP ward was completely isolated to receive just one patient. Raphael Morrison, 35, founder and CEO of TechMind, the largest artificial intelligence company in the United Kingdom. His health condition was considered critical, though no one could pinpoint exactly what was happening to the young entrepreneur. Dr. Marcus Blackwood, the hospital's director, had assembled a team of the 20 most renowned doctors in the country. Specialists in cardiology, neurology, pulmonology, and various other fields tirelessly examined Raphael, without reaching a conclusive diagnosis. The patient's condition worsened inexplicably by the hour. His tests showed no brain trauma, infections, or evident blood alterations, except for a mysterious drop in oxygen saturation. "We need immediate answers. How is it possible that none of you can identify what's happening?" Dr. Marcus fumed, watching Raphael's vital signs dangerously fluctuate on the monitors. "We're talking about the man who revolutionized British medicine with his AI diagnostic systems. If anything happens to him, the responsibility will fall on all of us." At the other end of the floor, far from the vigilant eyes of security, Sophie Oliver, a 7-year-old girl with curly hair and keen eyes, watched all the commotion. Daughter of Mrs. Teresa, one of the cleaning staff members, Sophie had been accompanying her mother to work since her father, Joachim, had been admitted to the same hospital 3 months prior. "Mum, it's the same smell," Sophie whispered, tugging at the hem of Teresa's uniform. "It's just like the one in Dad's room." "What smell, dear?" "I can't talk now. I'm working," Teresa replied, pushing her cleaning cart down the corridor. "Almond smell. Sweet and bitter at the same time, like in Dad's room when he got sick." Teresa looked at her daughter with a mixture of concern and tenderness. Ever since Joachim had been hospitalized in serious condition, Sophie had developed an obsession with observing patterns and symptoms. The girl spent hours in the hospital corridors, listening to medical conversations and observing procedures through half-open doors. It was her way of processing the trauma of almost losing her father. "Sophie, we've talked about this. Your dad had a severe allergic reaction. It was different. And you shouldn't be here on the VIP floor. Go to the staff lounge and stay there with your tablet, okay?" The girl nodded, but as soon as her mother walked away, Sophie purposefully headed to the nursing station. There, disguised among the equipment, she could hear the heated discussion among the doctors. "The symptoms don't make sense," said a doctor in an impeccably white lab coat. "It's as if something is interfering with basic metabolic processes, but we haven't found any external agent." "Have we considered all possibilities of intoxication?" asked an older doctor with a grizzled beard. "Yes, Dr. Anthony. We've done all the standard toxicological tests. Nothing was detected." Sophie frowned. The words were exactly the same ones the doctors had used when her father was hospitalized. Joachim Oliver, a construction worker who had participated in the recent renovation of the TechMind building, had presented identical symptoms: a drop in saturation, absence of identifiable trauma or infection, progressive worsening without apparent cause, and the same almond smell in the room. In the VIP room, Raphael briefly opened his eyes, trying to focus his blurry vision. His body was weak, as if an invisible force was draining his energy. Around him, doctors discussed theories and possibilities without reaching a conclusion. The entrepreneur tried to speak, but only a faint groan escaped his lips. "Mr. Morrison, can you hear us?" Dr. Anthony asked, approaching the bed. "If you can, squeeze my hand." Raphael managed a slight movement of his fingers, enough to indicate he was conscious. Dr. Anthony signaled his colleagues to come closer. "We need to consider environmental factors, something in the air, in the water, or in the equipment that might be causing this." At that moment, a middle-aged nurse, wearing red glasses and with her blonde hair tied in a ponytail, entered the room carrying a tray of medications. Sophie, who was observing through the crack in the door, felt a shiver run down her spine. That nurse. She seemed familiar. "It's the same person," Sophie murmured to herself. It's the same one who gave Dad his special medicine. The nurse approached Raphael's bed, checked the IV, and prepared to administer something into the equipment. Sophie felt her heart race. Without a second thought, the girl pushed the door open and rushed into the room. No, it's her. She's the one who made my dad sick. All eyes turned to Sophie, who was pointing at the nurse with red glasses. Dr. Anthony, surprised by the intrusion, approached the girl. Who are you? How did you get in here? He asked, his voice authoritative but not hostile. The nurse, visibly uncomfortable, placed the tray on the table. She's the daughter of a cleaning staff member. She's had emotional problems since her father got sick. I'll call security. No, please, Sophie pleaded. She's doing the same thing she did to my dad. I recognize the smell. It's the same almond smell. Dr. Anthony looked intrigued at the girl. There was something in Sophie's conviction that made him hesitate. Years of medical experience had taught him to value unexpected observations. Almond smell? He asked, frowning. Yes, doctor, Sophie replied, tears in her eyes. Bitter almonds, like the medicine my grandpa used to take for his heart. It's everywhere in this room, just like in my dad's room when he almost passed away. The nurse with red glasses took a step towards the door. I'll go get her mother. Wait, Dr. Anthony ordered, now looking at the nurse with suspicion. I don't recall you being on the team assigned to this case. Could you please show me your ID? At that exact moment, one of the monitors connected to Raphael began to emit a shrill alarm. His oxygen saturation was plummeting rapidly. Chaos erupted in the room, with doctors rushing to stabilize the patient. The nurse took advantage of the confusion to leave quickly, but Sophie followed her with her gaze. Dr. Anthony, torn between attending to the emergency and investigating the strange situation, yelled to a nearby security guard, "Don't let that nurse leave the hospital. We need to verify her identity." While the team worked frantically to stabilize Raphael, Sophie remained in the corner of the room, observing everything with keen eyes. She knew she was right. It was the same situation as her father, and no one would believe her, a mere 7-year-old child. But Sophie was determined. She would not allow the same near-fatal fate as her father to befall Raphael Morrison, even if it meant confronting the entire system of St. Jude's Hospital. As the doctors struggled to stabilize Raphael Morrison, Sophie was led out of the room by a kind nurse. In the corridor, Mrs. Teresa rushed anxiously to meet her daughter. "Sophie, what have you done? They're saying you invaded the VIP patient's room." Teresa held her daughter by the shoulders, her face a mixture of anger and concern. "Mum, it's the same thing that happened to Dad. The same smell, the same symptoms, and that nurse with red glasses was there too. She was putting something in his IV." Teresa sighed deeply. "Sophie, we can't go around making up stories. Your dad had a severe allergic reaction to the renovation chemicals. That's what the doctors said. But Mum, no buts. You could make me lose my job. Let's go to the staff lounge now." As she was pulled away by her mother, Sophie looked back and saw Dr. Anthony hurrying out of the VIP room. His gaze met hers for a brief instant, and she felt that he, unlike the others, might believe her. In the staff lounge, Sophie sat in a corner, hugging her school backpack. Inside, she kept something precious, the medical diary she had compiled during her father's hospitalization. Pages and pages of notes made in childish handwriting, but surprisingly detailed, recording times, medications, symptoms, and most importantly, who entered and left the room. "I need to show this to that doctor with the beard," she murmured to herself, flipping through the colorful notebook. Outside, the hospital entered a state of silent alert. Security had been activated to locate the nurse with red glasses, who had mysteriously disappeared after leaving the room. Dr. Anthony Barnes, intrigued by the girl's words, headed to the Human Resources Department. "I need the complete list of all staff scheduled for the VIP ward today, especially nurses," he requested from the administrative coordinator. "Of course, Dr. Anthony. Here you go," she replied, handing him a folder. "Only 10 nurses have authorization to access the VIP ward, and all have been rigorously vetted." Dr. Anthony examined the list and the photographs. "There isn't a single blonde nurse with red glasses here." The coordinator frowned. "We don't have any nurse fitting that description in the entire hospital, Doctor." The doctor felt a chill run down his spine. Quickly, he requested access to the security camera footage. In the images, he clearly saw the woman with red glasses entering the VIP ward with an access badge, but he couldn't identify her face, always skillfully hidden from the cameras. "This doesn't make sense," he murmured to himself. At that moment, a nurse approached him in the corridor. "Dr. Anthony, you asked to check the system login records. Someone used Dr. Cecilia Vance's login to access Mr. Morrison's medical records 30 minutes ago, but Dr. Cecilia has been on holiday in Europe for 2 weeks." Dr. Anthony felt his stomach drop. Something very serious was happening. He suddenly remembered the girl's words. Bitter almond smell. In his more than 30 years of medicine, that description stirred a distant memory from his university days. Bitter almond smell. Where had he learned about that? An old poisoning case? No, it couldn't be that. Perhaps a specific chemical reaction, a drug interference. Determined, Dr. Anthony headed back to the VIP ward, where Raphael had finally been stabilized, though his condition remained critical. He immediately ordered, "I want a complete examination for the presence of cyano compounds in the medical equipment and in the environment, and also an analysis of the air conditioning system." The other doctors looked at him in astonishment. "Cyano compounds? Why do you think it could be that?" questioned a colleague. "A hunch. The smell of bitter almonds is characteristic of certain chemical compounds that can cause cellular hypoxia, explaining the drop in oxygen saturation." While the team mobilized to perform the new tests, Dr. Anthony decided to look for the girl who had started it all. He found Sophie still in the staff lounge, intensely scribbling in her notebook. "Hello," he said, approaching carefully so as not to startle her. "My name is Dr. Anthony Barnes. You are—" "Sophie Oliver," the girl replied, looking at him with keen eyes. "Did you come to send me away from the hospital?" Dr. Anthony smiled gently. "No, Sophie. I came to talk. You said something interesting about an almond smell. Can you tell me more about it?" Sophie's face lit up. Finally, someone willing to listen to her. Quickly, she opened her notebook and began to show her notes. "My dad worked on the renovation of the TechMind building. He was fine, but then he started to get weak, with difficulty breathing. The doctors found nothing wrong, just like Mr. Morrison. And there was this smell in his room, always stronger after the nurse with red glasses visited." Dr. Anthony examined Sophie's notes with growing admiration. For a 7-year-old child, she had done an impressive job documenting times, symptoms, and even conversations she had overheard among the doctors. "You wrote all this down?" "Yes," Sophie replied, turning a page. "Look here, this is the nurse. She always came outside normal hours when there were fewer people in the hospital. She tampered with my dad's machines and gave him special drinks. She said they were vitamins, but after he took them, he got worse." Dr. Anthony observed the childish drawing of a woman with red glasses, blonde hair tied back, and a mark on her right hand. "Does she have any special mark? A scar, perhaps?" Sophie nodded vigorously. "Yes, on her right hand, a moon-shaped scar. I saw it when she adjusted my dad's pillow." The doctor felt his heart race. That specific detail could not be the product of a child's imagination. There was something real there. "Sophie, your dad recovered. How did that happen?" "It was after I accidentally spilled juice on the oxygen equipment. They had to replace everything. After that, Dad started to get better quickly." Dr. Anthony stood up suddenly. "Sophie, you might have saved your dad without realizing it. And now you might be saving Raphael Morrison, too. I need you to come with me." Teresa, who was observing the conversation from afar, approached, concerned. "Doctor, what's happening? Is my daughter in trouble?" "On the contrary, madam. Your daughter may have identified a serious problem that we, experienced doctors, failed to see. I need her to show me exactly where your husband was hospitalized and what equipment was replaced." With Teresa's reluctant permission, Dr. Anthony took Sophie to the old room where Joachim had been hospitalized. The room was now occupied by another patient, but the hospital's technical team was called to check the entire oxygen delivery system of the hospital. "We found something, Dr. Anthony," the head of maintenance reported after a few hours of investigation. "There's an unauthorized device connected to the central oxygen distribution system that serves the VIP ward. It's small, almost imperceptible, but it's releasing a chemical compound into the air." Dr. Anthony felt his blood run cold. "And what exactly is this device releasing?" "A cyanide derivative in very low concentrations, not enough to cause immediate effects, but with prolonged exposure. It could cause exactly the symptoms we're seeing, the doctor completed. Sophie, who was listening intently, tugged at Dr. Anthony's lab coat sleeve. "Doctor, the nurse with red glasses. She was in Mr. Morrison's room today. If she's the same person who made my dad sick, she might try to do something again." The doctor nodded gravely. "You're right, Sophie. We need to find her immediately." While hospital security mobilized to locate the mysterious woman, Dr. Anthony returned to the VIP ward with an urgent order: replace the entire oxygen delivery system and transfer Raphael Morrison to another ward in the hospital under heightened security. News that the system had been tampered with spread quickly among the medical staff, generating a mixture of shock and disbelief. How could someone have access to such restricted areas of the hospital? And more importantly, who would have motives to endanger patients' health? Sophie, now recognized as a key piece in the discovery, remained by Dr. Anthony's side, offering all the information she could remember about the mysterious nurse. What no one realized, however, was that on the other side of the hospital, a figure watched the security team's movements attentively through the monitoring cameras. Her red glasses reflected the light from the monitors as her fingers rapidly typed a code into the hospital's central computer. The game was just beginning. News that St. Jude's Hospital's oxygen system had been tampered with quickly reached the administration. The director, Dr. Marcus Blackwood, called an emergency meeting with the board and the security team. He also summoned Felicity Archer, the hospital's head of digital security, a former police officer who now commanded all of the institution's cybersecurity. "I want to know how someone managed to access our system without being detected," Dr. Marcus demanded, banging his clenched fists on the table. "We have one of the most advanced systems in the country." "That's exactly why they succeeded," Felicity replied, adjusting her black-framed glasses. "Our system is so automated and AI-dependent that it became vulnerable to those who truly understand its internal workings." Dr. Anthony, who was participating in the meeting along with Sophie and her mother, interjected, "We need to understand the motive. Why would someone specifically attack Mr. Morrison, and before him, Mr. Oliver?" Teresa hugged her daughter protectively. "My husband is just a construction worker. He has no enemies, no money, no influence. Why would someone attack him?" Felicity, who was analyzing data on her tablet, looked up. "Mr. Oliver worked on the renovation of the Tech Mind building, correct? The same place where Mr. Morrison works." Sophie nodded vigorously. "Yes, Dad helped build the new headquarters. He knew the whole building, even the hidden parts no one else knew." Dr. Anthony frowned. "Are you suggesting a connection between the cases based on the company?" "It's a possibility," Felicity replied. "We'll check all system accesses over the last few months. If someone breached our network to sabotage the oxygen system, they left digital traces." While the security team worked, Raphael Morrison, already transferred to another ward of the hospital, began to show signs of improvement. His body, free from exposure to the toxic compound, reacted positively to the treatment. Dr. Anthony visited him regularly, always accompanied by a security guard. "How are you feeling today, Mr. Morrison?" the doctor asked, checking the new tests. "Better," Raphael replied in a weak voice. "What happened to me?" Dr. Anthony hesitated before answering. The police had recommended discretion until they had concrete evidence. "There was a failure in the oxygenation system, but we've already resolved the problem." Raphael, even debilitated, was too sharp to accept such a vague explanation. "Doctor, I'm a systems expert. I know how to recognize when something is a technical failure or a deliberate action. What really happened?" The doctor sighed. "Mr. Morrison, there's evidence that someone may have tampered with the VIP ward's oxygenation system, introducing a chemical compound that affected your cellular respiration. We are investigating." Raphael closed his eyes for a moment, processing the information. "Who discovered this?" "A 7-year-old girl," Dr. Anthony replied with a slight smile. "She noticed patterns that all of us experienced doctors overlooked. I want to meet her." On the other side of the hospital, Felicity Archer worked tirelessly, reviewing every access log, every command executed in the system over the last few months. Beside her, IT technicians examined the device found in the oxygen system. "It's sophisticated," one of them commented, "programmed to release the compound at precise intervals, in quantities that would hardly be detected in common toxicological tests." "And what about access?" Felicity asked. How was it installed? It requires maximum level authorization. Only system administrators or chief doctors would have that kind of access. Felicity felt a chill. We're looking for someone from the inside. Investigations proceeded intensely over the next 24 hours. Security cameras, entry and exit logs, work schedules, everything was meticulously analyzed. On the afternoon of the second day, Felicity called another urgent meeting. "We found something," she announced, projecting a series of records onto the screen. Over the past 6 months, Dr. Cecilia Vance's login was used to access restricted areas of the system at times when she was supposedly not in the hospital. "Dr. Cecilia?" Dr. Marcus asked, surprised. "She's one of our best neurologists. She's been with us for over 10 years. "Yes, and she's been on holiday in Europe for 2 weeks, but her login was used yesterday to access Mr. Morrison's medical records." The room fell into absolute silence. Dr. Anthony was the first to speak. Someone might have hacked her login. "Or," Felicity interjected, "we're dealing with a more complex situation. We also discovered that Dr. Cecilia is the sister of Lucas Vance, a former TechMind employee who worked directly with Raphael Morrison." "Lucas Vance," Dr. Marcus murmured, trying to recall. "That name sounds familiar." "He was the chief programmer for TechMind's Medical Systems division," Felicity continued. "He was dismissed 8 months ago after a disagreement with the company's management." Sophie, who had been silently observing everything next to her mother, suddenly timidly raised her hand. "May I say something?" All eyes turned to her. Dr. Anthony nodded, encouraging her. The nurse with red glasses, she didn't seem like a real nurse. She knew how to operate the machines, but when she spoke to the other nurses, she used different, more complicated words, as if she wasn't really a nurse. Felicity looked at the girl with renewed interest. "What do you mean, different words?" "She talked about algorithms and codes. I heard her tell another nurse that the distribution algorithm was inefficient and needed adjustments. My school IT teacher talks like that." Dr. Anthony exchanged significant glances with Felicity. "What if we're not looking for a nurse, but rather someone with advanced technical knowledge? Someone who understands both medicine and programming?" "Like a programmer's sister," Felicity completed. "Dr. Cecilia is a neurologist, but she also studied biomedical engineering before medicine. She has enough knowledge to understand both worlds." Dr. Marcus stood up, agitated. "Are you suggesting that one of our most respected doctors is behind this? That's absurd." "It's a hypothesis that needs to be verified," Felicity replied calmly. "I've already requested airport footage of her to confirm if she actually left the country, and I need to speak with her immediately." As the investigation progressed, Raphael Morrison received a special visit. Sophie, accompanied by Dr. Anthony and her mother, timidly entered the room. "So, you're my hero," Raphael said, with a weak smile, extending his hand to the girl. Sophie blushed. "I just noticed the almond smell like in my dad's room." "You did much more than that," Raphael corrected, adjusting himself in bed. "You observed patterns that adults couldn't see. That's exactly what we try to teach our AI machines to do." The girl's eyes widened. "You teach machines?" Raphael smiled. "In a way, yes. My company develops artificial intelligence systems for hospitals. They help doctors diagnose diseases more quickly. Like the Cerebrum system we use here," Dr. Anthony added. "It was developed by Mr. Morrison's company." Sophie bit her lip, hesitant. "Can I ask a question?" "Of course," Raphael replied. "Why couldn't the system diagnose what was happening to you or my dad?" A heavy silence fell over the room. Raphael and Dr. Anthony exchanged worried glances. "That's an excellent question," Raphael finally replied, "and one we need to investigate deeply." At that moment, Felicity hurried into the room. "We need to talk privately," she said, addressing Dr. Anthony. The two went out into the corridor, leaving Raphael chatting animatedly with Sophie about computer systems. "What did you find?" Dr. Anthony asked as soon as the door closed. "Dr. Cecilia never traveled to Europe. Her passport doesn't show any exits from the country in the last 6 months. And what's more, we gained access to her personal email. There's an extensive exchange of messages with her brother before the incident that led to his dismissal." "What was the incident about?" Felicity consulted her notes. "Lucas Vance discovered a serious ethical flaw in the Cerebrum system. The algorithm was prioritizing patients with premium health plans, and delaying diagnoses for patients with basic plans or the NHS. He tried to correct the problem but was prevented by the company's management. When he threatened to publicly denounce it, he was dismissed. Dr. Anthony felt a knot in his stomach, and what happened to him after that? He developed severe depression. He was hospitalized for 3 months in a psychiatric clinic. After that, he disappeared off the map. There are no records of employment or financial activity under his name in recent months. And his sister? Where is Dr. Cecilia now? Felicity took a deep breath before answering. That's what worries me. We can't locate her. Her apartment is empty, with no signs of recent habitation, but... She hesitated. But what? Dr. Anthony insisted. We found something in her apartment. A detailed map of TechMind, with notes on the ventilation system, and a chemical formula that appears to be the same compound found in the oxygen system here. The two exchanged glances, the gravity of the situation weighing on their shoulders. She's not just trying to sicken Raphael, Dr. Anthony concluded. She's planning something much bigger. We need to find her before it's too late, Felicity replied, already moving towards the elevator, and protect both Raphael and Sophie's father. If our theory is correct, they are just the beginning. Meanwhile, in the hospital room, Sophie was showing Raphael her notes about the hospital's systems. You have a brilliant future in technology, you know, Raphael commented, impressed by the girl's observational skills. Sophie smiled timidly. I just wanted to help my dad, and now you. Raphael looked out the window, thoughtful. Sometimes we need innocent eyes to see the truth that's right in front of us. Maybe that's what's missing from our systems. What none of them knew was that at that exact moment, a figure was moving silently through the hospital's underground corridors, carrying a sophisticated electronic device towards the main server room. The plan was entering its final phase. Night fell over London as Felicity Archer gathered her security team in the monitoring room of St. Jude's Hospital. On the screens, dozens of cameras showed every corner of the hospital complex. The tension was palpable. We need to find Dr. Cecilia before she executes whatever she's planning, Felicity instructed her team. Based on the evidence we found in her apartment, she has enough knowledge to sabotage not only the hospital's systems, but potentially TechMinds as well. One of the security guards raised his hand. How could she access TechMind from here? The systems are interconnected, Felicity replied, projecting a diagram onto the central screen. St. Jude's Hospital is the official testing ground for the Cerebrum system. There's a direct connection to the company's servers for real-time updates and performance monitoring. Dr. Anthony, who was attending the meeting, frowned. So she could use our system to access TechMind remotely? Exactly, Felicity confirmed, and based on what we discovered about her brother, we believe the objective is to publicly expose the ethical flaw in the AI algorithm. Ethical flaw? Questioned the hospital director, who had just entered the room. What ethical flaw? Felicity and Dr. Anthony exchanged embarrassed glances. Finally, Felicity spoke. Lucas Vance, Dr. Cecilia's brother, discovered that the Cerebrum system was programmed to prioritize patients with premium health plans over patients from the NHS or basic plans. In urgent diagnosis cases, this could mean critical delays for the less fortunate. The director's face paled. Is this true, Morrison? He asked, turning to Raphael, who had insisted on participating in the meeting despite his still weakened state. Raphael, sitting in a wheelchair, sighed deeply. I didn't know about this until a few hours ago, when Felicity showed me the emails. Apparently it was a decision made by the commercial team without my direct knowledge. It's indefensible, and I will correct it immediately. But first, we need to prevent any attack on our systems. Why didn't Dr. Cecilia just denounce this publicly? Questioned one of the doctors present. Why resort to such extreme methods? Because her brother tried to do exactly that, Felicity replied. He was silenced, dismissed, and ended up developing severe depression. In the emails we found, Cecilia blames TechMind and the Cerebrum system for her brother's suffering. She wants more than a simple denunciation. She wants revenge and justice in her own way. Sophie, who had been brought along with her mother to the room for security reasons, observed everything with keen eyes. Suddenly, she tugged on Dr. Anthony's sleeve. Doctor, I just remembered something important. Everyone in the room turned their attention to the girl. On the day my dad got very sick, I overheard the nurse with red glasses talking on the phone in the corridor. She said that the test on the worker subject was successful and that she was ready to move on to phase 2, the system architect. Raphael straightened up in his wheelchair. I am the system architect, and your dad was the test, Dr. E. Anthony completed, turning to Sophie and Teresa. He worked on the construction of TechMind. He probably had access to blueprints and areas that interested Cecilia for the bigger plan. Felicity quickly absorbed the information. If we follow that logic, after testing on Sophie's father and now on you, Raphael, the next step would be a large-scale attack, Raphael completed, his face pale, using what she learned in the first 2 cases. A heavy silence fell over the room, broken only by the constant beeping of the monitors. We need to act now, Felicity decided. We'll set a trap. In the following hours, a meticulous plan was devised. Raphael would be the bait, seemingly still vulnerable in his hospital bed, but under constant surveillance. Simultaneously, the digital security team would track any attempt to access the hospital system. Doctor, Cecilia doesn't know we've identified her, Felicity explained. That gives us an advantage. The plan went into action the next morning. Raphael was transferred back to the VIP ward, now fully monitored and with renewed systems. News of his relapse was strategically spread among staff. Meanwhile, Sophie and her parents were taken to a secure area of the hospital with police protection. I don't want to hide, Sophie protested. I want to help catch the person who hurt my dad and tried to hurt Mr. Morrison. Dr. Anthony knelt to be at the girl's height. Sophie, you've already helped us more than any of us. Now we need to ensure your safety. But I know her face better than you. I can identify her if she shows up disguised again. Felicity, who was listening to the conversation, had a sudden idea. What if we used that to our advantage? Safely, of course. After some adjustments to the plan, Sophie was positioned in the monitoring center, far from any danger, but able to observe the security cameras in search of the mysterious nurse. Her mother remained by her side, still worried, but proud of her daughter. The hours dragged on tensely. Raphael remained in his bed, pretending to be debilitated, while a security team disguised as doctors and nurses circulated through the ward. In the control center, Felicity monitored every suspicious movement, every system access. It was Sophie who noticed first. There, she pointed to one of the monitors. That woman in a lab coat entering through the service door. It's her, but she's not wearing the red glasses now. Felicity zoomed in on the image. A middle-aged woman with brown hair tied in a bun discreetly entered wearing a medical lab coat and carrying a folder. Nothing in her appearance matched the description of the nurse with red glasses, except the scar on her hand, Sophie exclaimed. Look, when she holds the folder. Indeed, there was a distinctive crescent-shaped mark on the woman's right hand. Felicity immediately activated the silent alarm. The suspect was heading towards the server ward, not Raphael's room. Change of plans, Felicity communicated via radio. The suspect is heading to the server room in the basement. Team B intercept her. Team A maintain positions with Mr. Morrison. Through the cameras, everyone watched the woman move confidently through the corridors, using a badge to access restricted areas. She clearly knew the hospital like the back of her hand. It's Dr. Cecilia, Dr. Anthony confirmed, watching the monitor intently. Even with the change in appearance, I recognize her movements, her gait. The suspect reached the server room door and swiped her badge. The door opened, but as soon as she entered, the lights came on, revealing 4 security guards waiting. Caught by surprise, she tried to run, but the door behind her was already locked. Dr. Cecilia Vance, Felicity's voice echoed through the loudspeaker system. You are detained for hospital system invasion, tampering with medical equipment, and attempted grievous assault against patients. On the monitor, everyone could see the woman's face contort in a mixture of anger and despair. She looked directly at the camera, as if she could see through it. You don't understand, she yelled. Their system is killing people. Poor patients are being neglected by an algorithm that prioritizes money instead of medical need. As the security guards approached to apprehend her, Cecilia quickly pulled a device from her folder. Not a weapon, but a small electronic gadget. Before they could stop her, she connected it to one of the server ports. Too late, she said with a bitter smile. The code is already running. In a few minutes, everyone will know the truth about the Cerebrum system. Felicity typed frantically on her computer. She's initiated some kind of program. It's accessing TechMinds and the hospital's internal databases simultaneously. What exactly is this program doing? Dr. Anthony asked, tense. It seems to be collecting all diagnostic records from the last 3 years and categorizing them by health plan type. It's compiling a comparative report showing discrepancies in diagnosis time and quality of care. Raphael, who had left his room and joined the team in the monitoring center, watched the data appear on the screen with a grim expression. She's exposing the truth, and the numbers don't lie. In the server room, Cecilia was now sitting on the floor, surrounded by security guards, but with a look of triumph on her face. "My work is done," she said, as she was handcuffed. "Now everyone will know." "What do we do?" Felicity asked, turning to Raphael. "We can try to interrupt the data transmission." Raphael looked at the numbers that continued to appear on the screen, revealing a harsh truth. Patients with premium plans received critical diagnoses on average 73% faster than NHS patients. In cancer cases, this difference potentially meant life or death. "No," he finally decided. "Let the program run. The truth needs to come out." Dr. Marcus paled. "This will destroy the hospital's reputation and your company's." "Perhaps it needs to be destroyed to be rebuilt the right way," Raphael replied, leaning heavily on his wheelchair. Sophie, who was watching everything with wide eyes, asked innocently, "Does this mean the lady with red glasses won?" Raphael looked at the girl with a sad smile. "No, Sophie, no one won here. But perhaps now we can start to fix what's broken." As the data continued to flow, the truth about the Cerebrum system spread rapidly through the hospital network and would soon reach the press. The trap had worked, but the outcome was more complex than anyone could have predicted. The real battle, that of rebuilding a just medical system, was just beginning. 3 months passed since the incident at St. Jude's Hospital. The case gained national notoriety, gracing headlines of all major media outlets. Medical AI prioritized wealthy patients, algorithm of inequality in British healthcare, the girl who unmasked the system. It was a sunny Saturday morning when Sophie Oliver, now with slightly longer hair and the same observant gaze, walked through the main lobby of the newly renovated St. Jude's Hospital. By her side walked her parents, Joachim, fully recovered, and Teresa, both dressed in their Sunday best. "I'm nervous," Sophie confessed, squeezing her father's hand. "You don't need to be," Joachim replied with a proud smile. "Today is your day." They were led to the hospital's main auditorium, now completely packed with doctors, nurses, executives, and journalists. On stage, Raphael Morrison, recovered and looking healthier, adjusted the microphone. Beside him, Dr. Anthony Barnes and Felicity Archer conversed in low voices. "Welcome to the official presentation of the new Sophia system, Observational Filtering Intelligent and Autonomous System," Raphael began, as Sophie and her parents settled into the front row. "A system that marks not only a technological revolution, but primarily an ethical one, in the application of artificial intelligence in British medicine." The audience applauded enthusiastically. In recent months, TechMind had undergone a complete restructuring under Raphael's leadership. The initial scandal almost drove the company into bankruptcy, but Raphael's courageous decision to publicly acknowledge the error and commit to correcting it earned him the respect of many. "Before explaining the new system's operation, I'd like to acknowledge the true heroine of this story," Raphael continued, extending his hand towards the front row. "Sophie Oliver, would you please come up to the stage?" With flushed cheeks, Sophie timidly climbed the steps, accompanied by warm applause. Raphael handed her a small statuette in the shape of a magnifying glass. "This is the Sophie Oliver Medal for Extraordinary Observation, which will be awarded annually to healthcare professionals who demonstrate exceptional capacity for observation and empathy. And no one deserves to be the first honoree more than Sophie herself." More applause echoed through the auditorium. Sophie, shy but visibly moved, held the microphone. "I just did what anyone would do. I observed what was happening and spoke the truth. Thank you for listening to me even though I'm just a child." The simplicity and sincerity of her words moved everyone. Dr. Anthony approached and presented a framed document. "Sophie, this is the official certificate for St. Jude's Hospital's Medical Mentorship Program. When you turn 18, you will have a guaranteed place in our medical school with a full scholarship. Your observational talent is exactly what we need in the next generation of doctors." Teresa couldn't hold back tears of pride while Joachim hugged his daughter tightly as she returned to her seat. Raphael resumed the presentation, now with a more serious tone. "The case we experienced here taught us valuable lessons about the dangers of technology without ethics. Dr. Cecilia Vance was right on one fundamental point. Our old system was perpetuating and even amplifying social inequalities deeply rooted in our healthcare system." On the screen behind him, the logo of the new Sophia system appeared, represented by a magnifying glass over a heart. The new system was developed with three fundamental principles: transparency, equity, and human oversight. Every decision made by the algorithm is now explainable and traceable. Prioritization criteria have been completely reformulated to consider only clinical severity and medical urgency, never the type of health plan or financial condition. Dr. Anthony took the floor. "As medical director, I can affirm that initial tests show a 62% reduction in diagnosis time discrepancies between patients of different socioeconomic profiles, and we are just beginning." Felicity Archer stepped forward to explain the new security protocols implemented, while the presentation continued with technical demonstrations of the new system. In the audience, journalists frantically jotted down every detail. After the formal ceremony, a small cocktail reception was held in the hospital garden. Sophie, surrounded by curious doctors who wanted to meet the little detective, as the media had dubbed her, answered questions with the same shrewdness that had made her famous. "Sophie, how did you manage to notice what no experienced doctor did?" asked a journalist. The girl reflected for a moment before answering. "I think it's because adults sometimes get so caught up in what they already know that they don't pay attention to what's right in front of them. I just observed, listened, and trusted what I saw." In a more secluded corner of the garden, Raphael conversed in a low voice with Dr. Anthony and Felicity. "And what about Dr. Cecilia? Any news?" Raphael asked. "She accepted the plea bargain," Felicity replied. "Full cooperation in exchange for an alternative sentence. She's helping to identify all vulnerabilities of the old system and contributing to the development of ethical protocols for medical AIs." "And her brother?" Dr. Anthony questioned. "Lucas is much better," Raphael said with a sigh of relief. "I offered my personal support for his treatment and recovery. When he's ready, there's a place for him in TechMind's new AI ethics division." A group of children, pediatric patients from the hospital, timidly approached Sophie, asking for autographs on their drawings. The girl, surprised by the attention, greeted each one with a genuine smile. "You've created an unlikely heroine," Dr. Anthony commented, observing the scene. Raphael nodded. "And she taught us the most important lesson. Sometimes the deepest wisdom comes from the voices we usually ignore." That night, St. Jude's Hospital shone with renewed lights. At the main entrance, a new sign read, "St. Jude's Hospital, where every voice matters." Beside it, a small bronze sculpture showed a girl holding a magnifying glass, immortalizing the moment Sophie Oliver forever changed the course of technological medicine in the United Kingdom. On the way back home, in the back seat of her parents' car, Sophie looked out the window at the lights of London beginning to twinkle. "What are you thinking about, dear?" Teresa asked, looking in the rearview mirror. "I'm thinking about all the other places that have systems similar to that old one," Sophie replied. "Are there more things wrong that no one is seeing?" Joachim and Teresa exchanged significant glances. Sophie's perceptiveness remained as sharp as ever. "Probably so," Joachim replied honestly. "But now, thanks to you, more people will be vigilant." The girl smiled, satisfied with the answer. In her backpack, she proudly carried the medal with her name and the certificate that guaranteed her future in medicine. But her greatest treasure remained her notebook, now with new pages waiting to be filled with observations that could, once again, change the world. Meanwhile, in the servers of St. Jude's Hospital, the Sophia system processed its first real cases, prioritizing patients based solely on their medical needs, regardless of who they were or how much they could pay. The small revolution initiated by a 7-year-old girl was just beginning to transform British healthcare. And in a small apartment on the outskirts of the city, Dr. Cecilia Vance looked out the window, reflecting on the events of the past few months. Her brother, now recovering, had told her earlier on the phone, "Sometimes we need to lose a battle to win the war." The sun was setting over London when Sophie, already in her room decorated with posters of scientists and detectives, opened her notebook and wrote in her childish handwriting, "Observation of the day. Sometimes the smallest person can make the biggest difference." And that was exactly what the Sophia system represented. The certainty that every observation matters, every voice deserves to be heard, and that true intelligence, artificial or human, must always be guided by compassion and justice. Her approach had been extreme, but the final result, a fairer system, was what she had always desired. Dear listeners, we hope Sophie Oliver's story has touched your hearts and sparked reflections on the power of observation and childish courage. To continue this exciting journey, we have prepared a special playlist with equally captivating stories about little heroes who transform the world around them. Find it by clicking the link to the left of the video. If you enjoyed this narrative, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like the video. Every day we bring unique stories that explore the complexity of life and the transformative power of the simplest actions. Don't miss our upcoming content. We look forward to reading your comments and knowing which part of Sophie's journey touched your hearts the most.